We're going to begin. Welcome, everyone. I'm Christine O'Shaughnessy. I will be hosting the Science of Awareness session today. Happy to be here. I will be hosting on behalf of Point 32 Health and Harvard Pilgrim, where we all come together in community to discuss some of these wonderful practices and science behind mindfulness and training the mind. So today I have the pleasure of talking about my book, which is Mindful Presence in Leadership, Releasing Burnout, Chaos, and Stress. And I'll start with just a little introduction of how I got to be here and writing the book and a little bit about me. So I am a mindfulness instructor for Harvard Pilgrim, and I also own my own company called Mindful Presence, and I coach individuals around the world in mindfulness-based practices, communication, nonviolent communication. And how I came to this was I used to be a financial analyst, an investment person, if you will, for many years. And when I was doing that role, I ended up really sick and ended up out of work for 6 months, had a health condition. And at the time, my director tapped me on the shoulder and said, there is this medical thing happening, but I really think part of this is stress related. And so he offered me to sign up for the MBSR program, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program, with John Kabat-Zinn. Many of you may have heard of it. And so I walked into that program having no awareness or understanding of mindfulness, training the mind, and all that that encompassed. And so at first, I was very resistant, and I was listening to other people sharing their experiences and why they were there. And some of them were very deep, personal, really challenging situations. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm just stressed. And so what that ended up being for me, though, is an unfolding of recognition, understanding that my mind and the way that I had trained my mind was contributing to my being stuck, and in some way was really contributing to my inability to heal fully. And so that became my practice. I walked out of that 8-week training and just said, oh my gosh, why doesn't everybody do this? And I vowed to bring this into corporations. So that was 1999. So I have been doing that since then. And I've been teaching and speaking for Harvard Pilgrim and Tufts since 2006. And it really brings me a lot of joy to be able to share these teachings with others. So a little bit what I wanted to start with is just this understanding that as humans, we are all subject to aging, illness, difficult circumstances, and situations in life. But how we approach these situations and circumstances depends on how we have trained the mind to be. And if we've trained our mind to be still and at ease, it changes how we respond to aging, illness, different circumstances in our life, in the world, whatever is present. So we always have a choice. And this is why I wrote my book, Mindful Presence in Leadership. And it's not about leadership in the sense of being a leader in work. It's that we all are leading in some way, shape, or form. Whether we are a parent leading our children, whether we are caring for elderly parents, whether we're leading in volunteering our community with our partner, at work, coaching a sports team, doesn't matter what it is, we are leading from a quality of heart and mind. So when we are leading from that quality of mind, we are learning how to transform the way that we think to enhance our overall well-being. So what I want to convey is an understanding that what we think we feel. Everything we think produces a feeling tone in our body. And we learn how our mental habits shape our day-to-day experiences and how there are different mindfulness practices that can help us tap into addressing a particular circumstance or situation. And that is to whether it's fully listening to another person or simply being at ease in the body during a stressful situation. And I'll touch on some of these practices. But ultimately, the foundation of what I talk about in my book is we all have a choice of how we want to train our mind. And when we really understand that what we think produces a feeling in the body, and from that feeling, it motivates us to take action, and then we get a certain result. So if our thinking is habitual and it is a thinking that is more in lack or not in agreeing or always having to be right or caught in chaos or not liking, aversion, resistance, then that will be what we are seeing in the world, and we'll continue to be stuck in that frame of mind. But when we train our mind to be in a place of ease, understanding, empathy, compassion, joy, stillness, we begin to see things differently, and our experiences to what's happening around us and the way that we relate to them begins to change. And it all starts with how we think. So for some, this can seem like an odd concept. And so I always say to people, experience it through your own practice. If you don't have a meditation practice, think about maybe just trying a couple minutes a day of sitting in stillness and noticing the habit nature of your mind. And if your mind is always going to what's wholesome and beneficial and what you love and gratitude, that's a wonderful mindset. And it's going to produce a certain feeling in your body, and it's going to motivate you to take action in a certain way in your life and get results that are positive. But if you sit with your mind and it's more in that lack and aversion and resistance and not wanting and I am right, that produces a feeling in the body. It may feel like gripping, pressure, contraction, holding the breath. And then from that feeling in the body, you take action and you get a certain result. And that result you may not like, but if you're thinking the same way, you're going to keep getting the same result. So we learn to look at our mind and our quality of our mind and train it to think differently. And so we do this through consistent practices. So one of the practices that I talk about in my book that I thought I would touch on is the emotional intelligence chapter. And what this is it sounds pretty straightforward. We all understand, not we all, but most of us understand emotional intelligence and how we can train the mind not to go into emotional reactivity and response. But to actually implement that can require certain practices. So I use the RAIN method as a tool to help leaders and individuals process situations in real time and recognize when there might be attachment to a specific outcome, preventing them from seeing it clearly. So what that involves is recognizing what's happening right now for you. You can even do this right now as you're watching this, just, okay, what's happening for me right now in my day? And then when you recognize that, recognize what emotions connected to this situation, this circumstance, how I'm feeling today. And then begin to allow whatever's there to be there. Allow and accept it, seeing it for what it is, without resisting it, just allowing the thoughts, the moods, the emotions, the mind states to be there, without interfering for just a moment. And then begin to turn to the body, remembering that what we think, we feel. And investigate with curiosity, kindness, and patience. How is this thing landing in you? What are the physical sensations? Is there a rising up? Is there a pushing forward, a leaning back, a striding? Is there pulsing, tingling, heat, coolness? Maybe you actually feel a pit in the stomach or a hollowness in the throat or discomfort in the head, or the eyes may be gripping, jaw may be clenched. What do we feel? And then investigate that with curiosity. Being with the awareness of how the thoughts and what you're thinking produces a feeling in the body. And then being curious, what am I believing? Right? What am I believing around this? And what would it be like not to believe that thing? And then come back to the body and notice if there's a little space and ease. In that investigation, you can also be really curious about what needs might not be met for you around this situation. Maybe you're desiring understanding, compassion, to be heard, recognition, order and structure, stability, peace of mind, integrity. Sometimes there's a need that's not being met that keeps the mind spinning around something. So just acknowledging it. When we see something really clearly in that moment of awareness, it can pop and we can just release and let go. And it doesn't have such a strong grip on us. So as you investigate all of this and just feel what's happening in the body, we cultivate this understanding and awareness of whatever's happening in my mind is producing a feeling in the body. And do I want to feel that way? And then we just release, resting back into a natural awareness of our breath and not identifying with that situation, circumstance, thought, conversation as being part of ourself, part of our identity, as I, me, or mine. It's separate from self. It's an experience, it's a circumstance, we're acknowledging it, but it doesn't have to be a whole part of ourself, and it doesn't have to keep us stuck for the day. So when we do that practice, it allows us to process with intention that thing. Instead of just pushing it in the background of your mind or making yourself busy to distract yourself because you don't want to look at it or see it. In just a brief practice of awareness, we can let go of the hold that it has over us and continue on with our day and feel better. So for a moment, it would be kind of fun to just explore if you begin to think about something that you truly love. Maybe a vacation that you took or that you have coming up, or a special occasion that you really just savored. And as you think about that, it may be a friend that you adore, a family member, a child, a pet, a graduation, a wedding, it could be anything. Think about that for a moment. And as you focus your mind there and put your attention on that thing that you love, this experience, it was great. Notice what you're feeling right now in your body. Maybe there's warmth. Maybe you feel energized, uplifted. Maybe there's space inside of you, in your heart. So recognizing we have a choice. We can feel that way, moment to moment. The moment that we notice our mind goes into things that are not comfortable, or things that are fueled by where we're dissatisfied in life, it's going to create the way we feel. And over time, the body may not feel very good if we're always thinking that way and feeling that way. So we turn the mind towards what is wholesome and beneficial and what we love. Compassion, kindness, gratitude. So we have a choice, and it's not saying all those other things aren't happening, right? Our lives are messy. Stuff happens every moment. But if we focus on the messiness, if we focus on the chaos, if we continue to focus only on what we don't like in ourselves, others, the world at large, at work, then that's going to be our perspective no matter where we go, where we live, what company we're in, who we're in relationship with. It truly all comes down to your mind. You shape every experience you have in your life. There is great power and wisdom in recognizing that truth. And this really is accessible to everyone. We all have these beautiful, glorious minds, and we can choose how to train them. So in my book, I talk about different practices, and then I have a workbook that I just published last week. And in the workbook, for each chapter, there's reflections where you do the practice and then you note, how is this changing the way you think and the way that you show up and work? How do you feel? And it's very brief, but there is power to repetition and to when we write. So when we do a practice and we feel something shifting, or there's an awareness or an aha moment, to be able to take a moment, pen to paper, not doing it on your phone and typing it in your notes, but writing it, there's this recognition and remembering of impressing it into your mind, so that we remember it next time we come across a situation that might be uncomfortable, that we need to really be in that place of emotional regulation and intelligence. We remember, right, I know how to do this. I have this tool. I can use rain. I can reflect and just allow what's there and notice where I'm getting in my own way with my habit nature of my mind. So these practices are powerful. They've been handed down through 2,600 years of tradition of looking at the truth of our reality, of how our mind is shaped and formed. And our minds are formed early in our lives. I love this quote by Dr. Bruce Lipton. He says, "Show me a child at the age of 7, and I will show you the man or woman that he will become." So up to the age of 7, our mind, our consciousness, our subconscious mind, if you will, is formed by what's going on around us, our environment, our family, what we're seeing, witnessing, the culture we grow up in, and that is being impressed upon us. And then at age 7, we start to think differently, discern, we can make choices, we can say we agree or disagree, like, don't like, we start to have more choice. But up until that, we have a mind that is primarily formed by our environment. So I share that only to say, to have deep compassion for yourself when you're diving into these practices, because sometimes we've been raised in circumstances that may have been very challenging. And so it formed a certain way that we respond to life. The good news is we can change the mindset to respond differently through the constant repetition of seeing clearly. And we don't always have to know what the outcome will be. When we dive into these practices and we wholeheartedly want to change the way we think because we want to feel better, sometimes the mind is so used to controlling, especially if we grew up in an environment where there wasn't a lot of control. When we're in this controlling mindset, there's gripping, there's contraction. We don't always see clearly. Our perceptions can be skewed. But if we practice not knowing, the mind softens and is at ease. So this is another practice in my book. When you know that you're stuck in a controlling mind, you're wanting to control an outcome, you've got your to-do list going, for a moment, just gently insert the phrase, don't know. I don't have to know how this is going to turn out. I don't have to know what's going to happen. I don't have to know how that person's going to respond. I don't have to know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? And when we rest in not knowing, we're in the present moment of awareness, with curiosity, with joy, with ease. And we just allow life to flow. So when we are practicing, we can do this as a formal practice where we just sit in stillness, and every time the mind goes into thought, we say, don't know. come back to the breath and body. Mind goes off again, don't know, back to the breath and body. We hear a sound, don't know what the sound is, back to the breath, back to the body. You may notice judging. I like this, I don't like this. Don't know, don't need to know. Is this good for me, not good for me, like this, don't like this? Right now, I just don't have to know. I just have to feel my breath. Feel my feet connected to the floor, feeling grounded. And as we practice in this way, the mind softens. And then we can slowly drop down into our heart. We give so much value to our mind, our thinking cognitive mind, which serves a purpose. But when we are entering life and our experiences and our conversations from quality of mind, of a not having to know everything, we are easeful. Our energy is different. We feel more comfortable in our body. So I invite you to practice not knowing. And you can do it as a formal practice to begin to train your mind to remember to use it in the midst of your day. Because you can use it when you're stuck in traffic and you're wondering if you're going to make it to your appointment on time. Don't know. Right? We can use it in every moment of our life. And then we recognize we create a lot of our mental suffering because we want to know everything. We want things to be certain, and that's not the way life is. So we train ourselves to be okay with uncertainty and ambiguity and not knowing everything. So I hope this is all landing well on all of you, and that I hope it's supportive and beneficial, and that you're gaining some excitement that you have a choice how you want to train your mind, and you can feel really good. You know, when we think about people we know or know of who have really challenging situations, and yet they're always upbeat and positive, it's how they choose to train their mind. So when you notice that you're in thinking the same way that you always think, I'd like you to start to be curious. How could I think differently? Right? Sometimes it's helpful to ask this lofty question, helps the mind open. Like, how come it's so easy for me to meditate? Why is it so easy for me to change the way I think? How am I able to adopt these practices so quickly and ingrain them into the full service of my life, share them with family and friends? So when we ask, how come, or why am I able? You're already moving into a positive mindset. You're shifting your mindset to possibility instead of, I can't, I don't have time, this is too hard, I don't like this, right? So, I mean, this is our humanness. I do the same thing. I can wake up sometimes in the morning and the first thing my mind goes into something I don't like, right? A sensation in the body, or I immediately judge the quality of sleep. And then I'm like, how lucky am I, right? I feel great. I woke up. I'm in this wonderful, healthy body. I have this beautifully trained, stable mind, really. I'm very fortunate, right? It's just quickly changing moment to moment. And I always don't know what my day is going to bring. And I love that. I love being in the moment, really present, moment to moment. That excitement of what's going to happen next. And I enter into the spirit of life in this way and my practice. We don't want to enter our practice or enter doing this work from a place of not wanting and resistance. We want to enter it coming from the spirit of wanting to be happy and joyful and feel good, right? So, a question I ask myself a lot when I'm in a situation that may feel dull or boring, or maybe it's an event I have to go to that I may not feel like. And then I'm like, how can I enter into the spirit of this? What opportunity is there here for me to learn and grow? Right? Everything in our life is an opportunity to learn and grow. Life's not happening to you, it's happening for you to learn and grow. So it's a wonderful experience when we come at it from that mindset. So I don't know if there's any questions. People are welcome to type in the Q&A any questions they have, or even just acknowledging like this resonates. Maybe there's a takeaway. Yes, thank you for reminding us we have the power to change how we think. Yes, and be comfortable with uncertainty. Yes, thank you. Yeah, and there is so much uncertainty, right? And I actually think that that's exciting, because if everything was the same every day, it's like Groundhog Day, right? That can be boring. So uncertainty, we got to step into it, into a different energy of it. Again, that uplifted quality of awareness of uncertainty also brings opportunity, right? There's always an opportunity for us to lead from our heart, to be kind to others. And it's easier to do that when we're training our mind to be kind to ourselves and to others. I want boring back. Val, that's a great comment. Yes, boredom. You know, boredom, I mean, there's many studies around that in neuroscience. Sometimes just sitting with boredom and being with boredom is actually really good, because we fill up every moment of our life with something, constantly distracted on our phones. And we get these pleasure senses, the sense pleasure from these external things, when we really want to train that pleasant feeling, a pleasurable heart and mind, from being still inside ourselves. That's really where it comes from. We have to cultivate happiness and stillness and joy inside of ourselves, because if we're expecting it to come from something outside of ourselves, it will be temporary and fleeting. Our practice is always here. It's always with us. It's our guiding light. So my book, thank you for asking that. My book is for sale on Amazon, and it is for sale on Barnes and Nobles online, both the book and the workbook. So you can buy them together. They really are meant to go together as companions. And I will type that in the chat box too. So some of this may seem simple, but I'm going to recognize we're all human and it can be challenging to change our mind. It's like this cog. We're trying to move it forward. And we have these paradigms. We get really comfortable when we're stuck in our habit thinking. And these paradigms derail us from really moving forward. So we have to look at it. Look at the non-productive thoughts that are keeping you stuck. Write them down. Look at the emotion underlying it. And then look at the action that you take when you have a non-productive thought. What do you do? Do you procrastinate? Do you go lash out at someone? What do you do? Disconnect, numb. And then take that non-productive thought and flip it. Write it productive. I embrace opportunities with joy. Whatever it might be, flip it. Notice the emotion when you flip it to something that's lighter, easeful, calming, more rooted in compassion. And then think about, what action will I take when I'm thinking this way, from a positive state of mind? And write this out. It's a wonderful exercise to do. Okay, so I want to thank everyone for being here today, taking time to listen, and hopefully you'll share this with others, and because the recording will be posted on our Living Well site. And in my book is my contact information. You are welcome to email me, reach out to me. I've got everything on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. So there's many ways for you to find me and connect with me, and be happy to support you and ignite you to really dive into these practices. All right. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day. You're welcome, everyone.